The film begins in a bleak future where the American economy has crumbled, leading to soaring unemployment and crime rates. In response to this chaos, the prison system has fallen into disarray and private companies have taken control of the facilities for profit. One such prison is Terminal Island, overseen by the ruthless warden Claire Hennessy. She profits by airing the death race, a deadly competition where inmates battle each other in heavily modified, weaponized vehicles on a track within the prison grounds. The prize for the inmates is their freedom if they manage to win 5 consecutive races. In the next sequence, we witness an exhilarating death race featuring the final 2 contenders, Frankenstein and Machine Gun Joe. The two fiercely attack each other's vehicles, but soon Frankenstein's navigator, Case, alerts him that all of his defensive systems have failed. She warns him that he could be killed, yet Frankenstein, unwilling to let Joe claim victory, presses on. He instructs Case to exit the car, which she does with hesitation. Unfortunately, moments later, Joe detonates a bomb, obliterating Frankenstein's vehicle just as he crosses the finish line. Next, we are introduced to the protagonist, Jensen Ames, a former convict now working at a steel mill. He struggles to make ends meet and provide for his family. One day, the police arrive at the mill and shut it down for illegal operations, plunging Jensen into a deeper crisis. He returns home despondent and shares the troubling news with his supportive wife, who assures him they will find a solution. As the couple shares a tender moment, their daughter's cries from upstairs interrupt them. Jensen heads up to check on her, leaving his wife in the kitchen. After some time, he returns downstairs only to be horrified to find his wife dead on the floor. When he turns around, a masked assailant sprays something in his face and places a bloody knife in Jensen's hand, making a shooting gesture before fleeing. Confused and disoriented, Jensen loses consciousness. When he awakens, he is surrounded by police who accuse him of murdering his wife and arrest him without hearing his side of the story. The scene transitions to 6 months later, where Jensen is transported to Terminal Island Penitentiary. There he is met by a sadistic guard named Rick, who greets him with a cold shower and instructs another guard to beat him. Jensen is then taken to his cell, where he faces threats from his cellmate. This time, however, he asserts himself by knocking out 3 men, establishing his dominance. The following day, while having lunch, Jensen is confronted by an inmate named Penko, who provokes him by calling him a white-life murderer and questioning if he has killed any children. This infuriates Jensen, leading to a brawl that is interrupted by guards who separate them. Rick then drags Jensen to Warden Hennessy for punishment. During their meeting, Hennessy reveals that she has an ulterior motive for summoning him. After reviewing his file and noting his impressive racing skills, she informs him that Frankenstein has died during his last race, although the public remains unaware. His absence has resulted in plummeting ratings, prompting Hennessy to propose that Jensen take his place disguised in a mask. She reveals that Frankenstein has already won 4 death races, and if Jensen can win just 1 more, he will earn his freedom. Initially hesitant, Jensen has no choice but to agree when Hennessy threatens to isolate him in solitary confinement. After their conversation, Hennessy introduces Jensen to 3 inmates, Coach, Gunner, and Lists, who serve as the mechanics for Frankenstein's vehicle. They are among the few privy to Frankenstein's death. Coach explains the structure of the upcoming races, which are spread over 3 days. The first 2 days are eliminatory, where the goal is merely to survive, while the final day is a speed race to the finish line. Each racer will have a female inmate as a navigator. Lists then outlines Jensen's competition, including his fiercest rival, Machine Gun Joe, as well as Penko 14K Grim, a Chinese-American driver who idolizes Hennessy, and Colt, a former professional racer. Jensen's attention is drawn to a van arriving with a group of inmates allowed to work outside, all wearing tracking devices on their wrists to prevent escapes. This shocks him, as the masked man who killed his wife also had a similar device. The next day marks the first phase of the death race, and Jensen is outfitted in Frankenstein's gear, complete with a mask and ring. Shortly after, the female inmates assigned as navigators arrive, and Case joins Jensen in the car. He introduces himself, but she tells him to cut the act, claiming she knows everything. At this moment, Coach arrives and informs Jensen that he can take off his mask since the windows are made of mirrored glass. Jensen complies, and upon seeing his reflection, Case comments that he's more attractive than the previous Frankenstein, jokingly suggesting she might navigate his belt buckle. The online broadcast of the deadly race begins, drawing in 12 million viewers. Before the race kicks off, Jensen communicates with Coach, who advises him to hold back at the start to avoid being targeted. When the race begins, all the inmates strive to survive. Case helps Jensen navigate shortcuts on the track, and the excitement of seeing Frankenstein back in action boosts the viewer count to 45 million. During the race, Grim eliminates a minor driver by crashing him into a wall, but is soon run over and killed by Joe. Jensen attempts to activate his weapons, but his car's machine gun jams. In a risky move, Case climbs into the gunner's seat to fix it, while another navigator shoots at her. Jensen maneuvers skillfully to protect her. Meanwhile, several drivers band together against Jensen, mistakenly believing he possesses Frankenstein's strength. His car takes heavy damage as the thin armor starts to buckle under the relentless assaults. Concerned, Coach urges him to give up, but Jensen devises a bold strategy. He instructs Case to spill fuel from a tanker into the air, drenching Colt's vehicle. Taking advantage of the situation, Case tosses a lighter at the fuel-soaked car, which explodes, killing Colt instantly. As the race nears its conclusion, Jensen appears close to victory. However, Penko calls out to him from his window, mimicking the hand gesture of the masked assailant who killed his wife. This recognition freezes Jensen in shock, allowing the other drivers to overtake him. Ultimately, he finishes last, while Penko takes first place. Later, a furious Jensen confronts Hennessy, declaring he will not participate in any more races. However, Hennessy pulls out a photo of his daughter with her new foster parents, attempting to emotionally blackmail him by stating he may never see her again. This revelation sinks Jensen's heart, and he reluctantly agrees to continue racing, knowing it's his only chance to reunite with her. That night, Jensen seeks out Penko to confront him about his wife's murder, but Penko and his men quickly overpower him and start beating him. As they restrain him, Penko grabs a large wrench, preparing to deliver a fatal blow. Suddenly, Liszt intervenes from behind, stabbing Penko with a pen. Seizing this moment, Jensen grabs a hefty steel block and retaliates against his attackers, viciously assaulting Penko and demanding to know why he killed his wife. Fearing for his life, Penko confesses that Hennessy ordered him to kill Jensen's wife. He reveals that Ulrich brought him to carry out the murder. Now aware of the truth, Jensen is consumed by a desire for revenge, but before he can act, several guards rush in and subdue both men with stun guns. The next day, Phase 2 of the race begins and only 6 competitors remain. As the race starts, Jensen drives slowly, appearing to be deliberately losing. He confronts Case about the circumstances surrounding Frankenstein's death and threatens to eject her if she doesn't answer. Eventually, Case admits that she sabotaged Frankenstein's car on Hennessy's orders, revealing that she was promised her release in exchange for her actions. She confesses that her aim was never to kill either Frankenstein or Jensen, but to prevent them from winning and escaping the prison. Horrified by this revelation, Jensen realizes that escaping from this hellish environment is impossible. Fueled by rage, he accelerates, determined to exact revenge on Penko. The two engage in a brutal fight, crashing into each other's vehicles. In a reckless move, Jensen lunges at Penko and activates his smoke grenade, blinding his enemy and causing him to crash into a concrete barrier. Though Penko survives the collision, Jensen flips his vehicle, snapping Penko's neck and eliminating him. Witnessing this, Hennessy becomes increasingly agitated and deploys a heavily armored 18-wheeler truck known as the Dread to eliminate racers and boost viewer ratings. The Dread takes out several racers, leaving only Jensen and Joe in the running. Realizing they can't take on the Dread alone, Jensen and Joe decide to team up against the truck. They attack from opposite sides while skillfully evading its relentless assaults. When a trap manhole appears in their path, they both hit it with 2 wheels, triggering the mechanism and causing the trap to rise, which results in the truck's destruction. With the Dread defeated, only Jensen and Joe advance to the final phase of the race. Later, Joe approaches Jensen, voicing his suspicions that he might be Frankenstein. He points out the similarities in their voices and threatens to unmask him. Meanwhile, Hennessy and Ulrich conspire to eliminate Jensen, viewing him as a growing liability. While Ulrich expresses concern over the broadcast, Hennessy dismisses it, asserting that Frankenstein is merely a mask anyone can wear. They decide to plant a bomb under Jensen's car to eliminate him the next day. On the final day of the race, Jensen meets with his mechanics, instructing them to keep half a gallon of fuel as a reserve, though he doesn't disclose the reason. He then approaches Joe, suggesting they have a conversation since they are the last 2 left in the race. Hennessy soon gives a motivational speech to the remaining racers, while Ulrich discreetly plants the bomb in Jensen's vehicle. As the match begins, both racers push each other to their limits. When Jensen attempts to use his weapons, he discovers they have been deactivated by the organizers. Meanwhile, Joe, who has full access to resources, continues to assault Jensen, much to Hennessy's delight. Shortly after, Joe launches a barrage of missiles, revealing a significant hole in the prison wall that had been weakened during the previous race. In a shocking turn of events, both cars speed out of the prison, leaving everyone stunned. Hennessy, furious at this betrayal, realizes that her 2 rivals have teamed up against her. In a desperate attempt to regain control, she tries to detonate the bomb under Jensen's car, but her efforts fail when Coach and his team have already discovered and removed it. Frustrated, she cuts the broadcast transmission, which had drawn an audience of 75 million. In response to the escape, Hennessy dispatches helicopters and police cars to capture the 2 fugitives. As the police cars close in, Jensen releases the extra half-gallon reserve tank, which strikes the approaching vehicles. They manage to reach the bridge connecting the prison island to the mainland, but when helicopters come into view, Case volunteers to act as bait, revealing that she has already received her release papers. Moments later, Jensen's vehicle crashes and helicopters surround it. A masked figure emerges from the car in a Frankenstein costume, raising their hands. Everyone assumes it's Frankenstein, but it's actually Case in disguise. Meanwhile, Jensen and Joe have boarded a train and are making their escape. Joe mentions his plans to go to Miami and invites Jensen to join him, but Jensen explains that he needs to find his daughter first. Back at the prison, Rick informs Hennessy that despite the chaos, they have captured Frankenstein. However, they remain oblivious to the fact that they caught the wrong person. Just then, she notices a gift on her desk congratulating her on her record-breaking ratings. When she opens it, she is horrified to find it's the same bomb they planted in Jensen's car. At that moment, Coach detonates the bomb in his workshop, triggering a massive explosion that kills both Hennessy and Ulrich instantly. The scene then transitions 6 months later to Mexico, where Jensen and Joe are working as mechanics, striving to live honest lives. One day, while they're working, Case unexpectedly shows up, excitedly hugging Joe. She mentions a minor issue with her release papers that cause a delay. Jensen is delighted to see her, introduces her to his daughter, bringing the movie to a heartwarming conclusion. If you enjoyed this, be sure to subscribe for more videos like this. Turn on notifications and leave a like to support the channel. Thank you for watching.